also had a conversation yesterday with a friend, and we talked a lot about growing up. And we both share the same mother wound, the same father wound, the abandonment, the instability in the house, safety and all that. And it made me think about, like, in my childhood, what was a repeating theme is that my stepmom put excuses for my dad for behaving a certain way, and that I started doing it. So I started being like, oh, he's just working really hard for long hours. And then I started doing it with guys, right? Oh, he's just not answering. Maybe he's really busy. So it's the same with shame and guilt in a sense where it comes from like we've been guilted and shamed in childhood.
Totally.
And it's really important to identify it. It's really important to catch it. It's really important to be like, why am I feeling guilty right now? Why am I like shaming myself or whatever? And yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I don't like calling it low vibe feelings, but I do think that we shouldn't be in that place. We should transform that.
Yeah.
We should be able to do what we want without the guilt and shame. Like, we should be able to just stand strong and be like, okay, I have nothing to feel guilty for. I have nothing to be shameful for, because this is me. And this is what I want. This is what I need. And this is my desire. Why do I need to feel shame and guilt?
Okay, I've got 3 responses. The first is that we call it low vibe because it's a statistically significant thing to mention. It's like it's a data. It's scientific.
So scientifically low vibe, okay.
Yeah. So basically what that means is like, yeah, you can literally measure it. You can measure on a scale, like a ECG, and all these different brain waves and labs have studied this. Like certain emotions, you feel a certain thing. It sends off a lower vibration, lower frequency than other emotions. It's like, yeah, I get that for you there's a judgment system there, but if you remove the judgment system, it's a fact. It's a scientific fact. All right. And so the concept is like different emotions have different frequencies. You send off different things, right? Same thing as someone walks into a room, they're morose. They're like, I really don't want to be here. And the waiter's taking so long. And the food is disgusting. And it's so hot in here. Right? Like that sends off a certain vibration. And so there's other emotions like, I'm so grateful to be here. And it's so lovely. Wow, I love your dress. And that's okay. The food is taking a long time. We can hang out longer. How great is that? So that has a different vibration. I would argue that one is more pleasant than the other. So there's less judgment. It's just more of like,
got it.
Yeah, there's a preference, right?
Yeah.
I think we'd all have a preference in that scenario. One main one is I distinctly, like relating to your story, I feel the same way, like guilt, and my mom was always making excuses for my dad. Everyone was making excuses for my dad. And then one of the things that really sticks out for me is a lot of my childhood, I really got the brunt of the noise from my father. And one of the things that sticks out for me is my mom and other people would always say, yeah, well, he loves you. Like, no, but he loves you. He's doing this because he loves you. And that's a really interesting thing that kind of sinks into your subconscious. It's like, wait a second. So as a kid, I was programmed to think that someone who treats me a certain way, I would argue relatively poorly and inhumanely and like aggressively, and just not okay for a human adult to treat any kid that way, especially their own child. But I was being programmed to think, wait, but that's actually love. Like, if someone talks down to you, or if someone intimidates you, or if someone is aggressive or domineering over you, they actually love you. They're actually there for you. They should care for you. It's like that was being programmed to me. So if it's wild to go back and think like, that's not love. But that's what I was programmed to think. So how is that playing in my relationships, in my life? And can I bring awareness to it? And yeah, I think like, that was the third thing I was going to say is, yes, it is really important. And we talk about this a lot, but we see it, I think, a little differently. Like, it is really important to understand why it is. Like, at some point that doesn't matter anymore. Like, if you say to yourself, why do I feel like this is love? Why do I feel guilty? Or what? At some point, yes, answer that question. It's really important. You have to understand why. It's very helpful. But at some point, moving beyond that, all you really have to say is, I'm feeling this certain way right now, and I'd prefer not to. And what are the reasons? Like, why am I feeling that way? For sure, you need to get into that. And then you say, well, how can I transform that?
I think you're basically saying that the weight I put on the why is bigger than what you agree with, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think so. And that's only because I put a serious weight on it for a long time and didn't solve my problem.
But for me, it's like the test results, right? I was feeling like shit. I was literally like,
Your
what is happening
neurotransmitter
with me?
test. Yeah.
What is happening to me? Why am I so low energy? Why am I depressed? And then when I saw the test results, I felt really validated, and then I felt empowered to do something and change. So it's a lot like feeling stuff. Like, for example, I can feel really guilty and not understand why, and propel kind of self-hatred. Why do I feel so guilty? Why do I feel so much shame? What's going on? What's wrong with me? But when you go back and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense because I was getting this message at home, then I think it opens up a path that where you can transform it.
Totally.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Totally agreed. I think the awareness is like the snow globe. You're like looking into the snow globe, right? That's the awareness. And then the foundation, the why is the foundation. It's like, what is happening right now? And like, why is it happening? You need to understand that because that's the first level of the awareness. You need to understand like who you are, what you are, where you came from. You have to put things into context. The why is the context. So now you see, okay, this is the universe I'm living in. But there's more to that foundation because the snow globe includes more than just the why. It includes everything else, which is like the actions you're taking, who you're doing it with, what you prefer to be doing, how you're going to get there, all that kind of stuff. So there's levels to it. So my only argument is like, yes, why is important, but it's just one level. So like, and the goal isn't to stay there.
It's not to find it out. Yeah.
The goal is to like get to the podium. Just like Israel in Eurovision Song Contest.
Hell yeah. But yeah, totally. I'm not saying the answer is in the why. That's not the answer. That's a puzzle piece.
Totally. It's very important. I spend a decade of my life, at least once a week, sometimes multiple times a week, on figuring out the why. And that was way more time and effort than I ever should have spent on that. I didn't progress past that in talk therapy. It was a blessing because it sent me to all these different modalities. But I came to find out that's just one part. And that's not even the most important part. I would argue like the snow globe of awareness was the most important part. The two most important parts from my perspective is the snow globe of awareness, like separating my human form from my being form. That's what I mean by when I say awareness. So awareness is like having a higher perspective. Like, oh, I'm not just here to like suffer and work a job and like die. Like I'm a human being. They call me that for a reason. Human being. There's a part of me that's divine and I'm a soul having a human experience. For me, that's number one. And then number two is like, what's the goal? Okay, well then if I'm a human being, I'm a divine soul. Like, what the hell am I here for? Like, why did I choose to come here? It's like, that's for me, like the second most important part. And the third is like, okay, well then if I am here, I'm a soul in a human body, I have a job to do or goal, purpose. And like, okay, well, like why? Why have I come here to fulfill this purpose? And then that's kind of like, now we lay the foundation of the snow globe. And then we just
I agree. You reminded me of something, but I think it's like there is a spectrum. Let's call it, I don't want to call it level, but there is a spectrum, right? There is a spectrum where you're just getting started with all of this. And you're like, what is the why? These are the traumas. This is what's happening. And then when you get past that, you can actually even connect to something higher than that. For example, chose this path. I had this agreement even before I was born to go through these things. And then it goes up and up. And I think that everyone should be on that process. And you can't tell someone just starting out, you chose your traumas, because they're not in a place of actually understanding and believing that and being in that higher awareness place. But it's definitely something, it's a big idea, high idea, which I love and relate to, and I agree. I don't think we came here to go through something that you cannot overcome. I think that you go through things and you already have what you need inside you to overcome these things. Whatever it is. I don't think it would be happening. I think we all have the trial by fire, right? That's how you said? Yeah.
I think we're on the same page. I just feel that if we start at the why, here's my problem. Here's my problem when you start at the why. I agree that maybe getting to the end goal initially is complicated, especially if you're not in the spiritual realm, or it's just, I mean, no one really starts out in the spiritual realm. You kind of have to get there, right? Because we get so programmed by society. But I think if you start at the why, which is what I did, the issue that I have with that is that it creates a form of self-identity. If it creates a self-concept that is not real. That's the problem with the why. So the why, for example, would be the set of programming that you received. Why did this happen to me? Or why do I feel certain ways? Or why, it was because I was abused as a kid. Or, it was because I was abandoned. Or, it was because I'm not good enough. It's because I'm less than. Right? So if you answer the why without the higher self-concept, then you're stuck with an identity that is not true. It's a false perception. It's a false self-concept. And that is so damaging. That's my point, is that's more damaging than anything. I'd rather you not answer the why.
To be honest, I think that's what's wrong with talk therapy.
Yeah, totally.
Because you pay a therapist,
right.
and you get to the why.
Oh, here's your problem.
Yeah, and then after that, you're like, holy shit, I'm broken.
Right.
There is no solution. I'm stuck.
Right.
Maybe they will bring you some tools, or they will affirm your experience, but that's more or less the level. Like for me, talk therapy was a good place to cry, but I always felt like shit after. It didn't empower me.
No.
It didn't really charge my battery. It didn't give me hope. It was more of like, this is your pattern. And I know it's hard, but this is why it's happening. And it's like, I mean, what do I do with this? And then I found myself repeating my patterns because my patterns were there to relieve pain, right? So I feel like shit. I'm flooded with bad feelings. Oh, I'm broken. I'm no good. Okay, I'll just go and do more of the drug that relieves this cycle. So I agree. And I think that's what's wrong with the way everyone's approaching therapy.
Right. Yeah, because the why will help you validate your false self-perception. And that's the problem in my mind with answering the why first. Now, that's like the main form. So when someone says, oh, I need help, or they're working through difficult emotions in their life or unpleasant things, or they're trying to make changes in their life, that's the first form of like getting help, right? I need to talk to someone. I need to figure this out. I don't have solutions. So I get going to therapy and I get using mental health resources. I love it. I'm in therapy. I love therapy. There's different modalities and different forms of it. But I just hope, I wish there was a way for someone just entering this world of like, I need to get help. Something's off. I don't want to feel this way. I'm down. I'm depressed. I'm anxious, whatever it is. And I need help. I just wish there was a way, like, if you need a why, let's get to the why. But then let's not use your identity, your false self-perception as a basis or a foundation for the why. Because the second you do that, now you're validating why you feel a certain way. And then the more you think about that being the source of your why, the more you have to perform that in the world. Because that's what you're doing. When you're validating the sense of why and yourself as someone who was abandoned or hurt or less than or any of these things, now your subconscious brain is picking that up and it's solidifying it even more so. So you're saying, every time you go to talk therapy and all these conversations you're having, all this understanding of why, you're hardening, you're forming this version of yourself, and your subconscious has no option but to play that out in reality. It's okay, you're less than, great. So now we're going to make you anxious in large groups of people in presentations. Oh, like you feel like you're not good enough? Okay, we're going to make you feel less than in your relationships with other people. Like, okay, you're abandoned? Great. Now you're going to have relationships with people and men and women who are going to leave you and abandon you. Because your subconscious is playing out in reality. That's our understanding of this external world being a mirror of your internal state of consciousness. So anyways, I wish there was a way, someone entering this world of trying to work on themselves and get into therapy, of like, let's answer the why quickly, but not put that on you, give you the larger background, the larger story of like, okay, what's really happening, actually, that's not why this stuff happened to you. Why it happened to you is because your soul wanted to learn specific lessons and want to grow in a certain way. So you pick this external reality so that your internal state could transform and grow. And this is a challenge for you to grow up the spiral of this human game to reach unconditional love and self-awareness.
Well, I understand that, and again, it's a really high idea. I really just don't think it's approachable to people.
We've tried this mental health thing for a long time.
Okay, but telling someone you're picking these experiences can be very unvalidating. And I also think that telling someone, or just saying in general, if you connect to the why, then you take that identity on. But if we're honest, that person has that identity. They just didn't figure out why. And now they're figuring out why, and they have something they can do about it. Not through talk therapy. It's not through talk therapy. But there are modalities out there that will help people cultivate relationships with themselves and connect to themselves in a higher level. So it will give them a choice point. Now they can see the terrain, and now they can choose what they want to do. They're no longer powerless. So it's all a matter of perspective.
Obviously, I disagree. I mean, that's what happened to me. I'm talking about my own personal experience. I found out this higher perspective, and it was actually very empowering for me. It wasn't disempowering at all. It put all the power back into my hands. I mean, that's the whole point of being the creator of your reality. So yes, on the surface, it can be triggering. That's okay. Our goal shouldn't be to avoid triggering people. Like, we're here to tell them the truth. This is the truth. And what a great, empowering belief system to realize, like, you're here to transform yourself, to grow and to love. Like, the hell's the matter with that? Like, yes, maybe in the beginning it's a bit triggering. You think, no, but I love that. I love the idea that, like, oh, okay, like, So I can remove all blame and fault finding from my parents and my caregivers and my upbringing. Like, it wasn't their fault. Like, I actually picked them, and I picked these scenarios that I myself could transform to be the best version of myself. Wow. Amazing. Like, that's very empowering. There's going to be two sides to every coin, right? The shadow side of that is it's your fault. You've caused everything. You're to blame. You caused disaster to yourself and to and all these kinds of things, right? Any pain that you've experienced is on you. That's the shadow side for sure. The light side is, wow, you created all these opportunities. You're an amazing, powerful creator. And like, you have created this amazing external reality landscape so that you could transform internally and become the best version of yourself. You set this all up. Your soul came here. It has tikkun. It's trying to overcome in this life, which is the same concept of all these other religions, Buddhism and karma and all this kind of stuff. So you're not talking some crazy stuff. You're in line with some of the serious religious modalities in the world. But anyways, yeah, there's two sides to it. So I get it. Yeah, if you come to someone like, hey, this is your fault. You created something. Yeah, of course, it's not going to land well. You have to kind of communicate in a healthy way. I feel like it's a very empowering thing. Like, hey, wait a second. Wow, how cool is that? Like, you're struggling with all this pain. And if we believe that like the law of polarity is real, if you struggle so much, you must also believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Just as much as you struggled, there's just as much goodness. There's just as much light. So getting people to that point in that belief system, I feel like honestly that would raise the level of consciousness in this world so much.
I agree. I just think that there is several ways and paths to do it. And the important thing to make sure, in my opinion, and again, this goes back to the shadow side of that, right? That saying, is that just making sure that it's not coming from an invalidating place. It's not coming from, oh, okay, I just got robbed. It's okay, my soul needs to go through this so I can evolve. That's not healthy, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're very sensitive to the invalidation. I get that. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of that work that Sarah was kind of doing with you, right? Yeah. So her work with you was like, it's not that this thing didn't happen. She was basically saying like, so one of the things you guys are working on was the concept of like you being abandoned by your mother, right? So said like the way that you prescribed it to Sarah, you said, I was abandoned. My mother abandoned me. And Sarah was working with you and trying to say, hey, like that must have been so hard. And I see that and I recognize that and I understand that like no one should be in that position and it's a terrible situation to be. And one of the things I want to help you on and help you work through is essentially saying like, you're realizing that your mother was a human just like all of us and any of us. And she did the best that she could. And at that point, that was the best decision she thought she made for herself and for you and so on and so forth. So is it safe to say, is it fair to say that she left you? And you say, yeah, right? So you say, okay, well, how do you feel about saying that my mother left instead of I was abandoned or I am abandoned? Because that changes and alters the self-concept you have of yourself. And if you think I am abandoned, then that's the form that your subconscious will take and prove to you and now in present time. Whereas if you said my mother left, it's still true. It's still the same scenario, but it's altering the perception of like, I am someone who gets abandoned versus they chose an action and left.
What is the difference between abandoning and leaving?
The perception is the only thing that's different, is how you perceive that. That's the only difference. That's the only thing that matters. That's why it's so powerful. When you say, I am. Anything you say after I am, right? We talked about this how many times?
Yeah, but
as you speak, you will create.
But this is not even the objective truth, because when someone abandons you, they just turn their back and walk away, and they abandon some sort of an agreement, like you're my mom. That's the agreement. You're gonna take care of me, see to my safety and my well-being. And someone leaving is someone that's like, listen, I'm leaving. I have to go. These are the reasons, and there is an agreement around leaving.
Not necessarily.
So in my experience, I can say all I want. My mom left me, and it doesn't change jack shit.
But I think that's because you're stuck on that self-identity, and I think that's the work that Sarah tries to do with people. Is they try to change that self-identity. That's the whole point.
I think that there are other ways to change that self-identity, and I'm walking it. I'm doing it.
No, of course they are. Yeah, and good for you. Good for you. Yeah, of course, and that's great.
I'm super sensitive to that. Yeah, for sure. And I might have been more open to changing that frame if the line of like, yeah, I get it, it must be hard, this and that, got more weight behind it. Yeah. And we would delay a little bit on that and the experience.
You wanted someone to like really sit there with you.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's really helpful for you is having someone sit in the shit with you. For one reason or another, you just need that.
Or just validate the shit, because the shit exists.
But she did validate it. She did validate it, but it wasn't enough for you. It's like you need someone That's what I'm saying. It's like,
No, I just think it was too fast.
too fast.
And it was a
Like,
demonstration.
you don't want someone touching the shit. You need someone like laying in it with you.
No, I don't think that's accurate. I think it's more, for example, hey, Jonathan, I understand that your mother abandoned you, and that was super hard, probably, and no little girl needs to go through it. But what if you can just say that she left? I don't think that carries the energy of being seen. I don't think it carries the energy of
but
giving
it doesn't matter.
space.
It doesn't matter because I realize like that's been the biggest shift in my life. I realize it doesn't matter what she thinks. It really doesn't matter. The whole point is she's trying to help me change how I see it.
For me, it's not helpful when it's like that.
Why not?
For me, because it's like...
But don't you see that if you saw that situation differently, you'd feel better?
Yeah, but if I could see any situation differently, I would do it. I would do it.
Okay. But no, that's not true. That's not true. That's why you still vape. So, and this is the thing. You want to, but you think that you can't.
I know I can.
No, you can, but you're not.
And there's a reason why
yes,
I'm not.
and here's the reason. This is the only reason. It's because you were so accustomed to it. You're so habituated. You're so comfortable and familiar with it. That's the whole point. That's it. That's true with anyone, not just you. We're not just talking about Rachel. We're talking about anyone. It's because you were so comfortable in that. That's why we have resistance to things. When someone says I have resistance to something, all it means is that thing's uncomfortable, unfamiliar, scary. That's all that means. I have resistance to it. So that's the whole point is like you have over the years, and that's totally fine. There's no judgment on this. And like anyone who's used to doing certain things, we've built up over the years a level of comfortability and familiarity with it. It's like we don't want to leave it. We don't want to leave it behind for no other reason than that's what we've built. We've built this wall. We've built this house. And we don't want to see it crumble because crumbling it is so scary. That's our identity. That's our self-concept. That's why the whole point, the ego death. That's why the ego death is such a powerful thing because it's like you're literally crumbling that house that you've built. And that's freaking scary. That's death. It's basically death. It's the closest thing you get to death. So the reason you have resistance to that is because you don't want to. There's a part of you, not you. There's a part of you that is really afraid of tearing down that house of that story. But like, if you could change it, you would, right? Don't you want an amazing story that like, what if you just literally closed your eyes and imagined the story of like, ooh, I grew up and I had like Ferraris and both my parents were there for me.
Because that's delusional.
Why is that delusional?
Because it's delusional. Maybe
Why?
Because to me it feels delusional.
But they're both fake. They're both fake. They're both stories that are in our heads.
No, what matters is the felt experience behind what happened. My mom could have just be like, bye Rachel, I'm going to a gas station. And she just gets out of the car and goes to buy Reese's Pieces or something. But I would feel abandoned. As a little girl, I would be like, shit, she left me. I feel like she abandoned me.
But that's because that's the story you tell yourself.
But it's a felt
because of the
feeling.
story you tell yourself. We talk about this all the time, don't we? What you think is how you feel is how you act. So
what you feel is how you think and how you act.
Well, like it goes both ways, but all of it comes down to our perception of the story that happened to us.
Sure.
Like we said,
sure.
You can have 10 different people looking at the same thing. They all have 10 different feelings.
And that's what I feel with all of this conversation about the way it needs to go. Like, I think we should honor any journey, every journey. And it's okay to have different perspectives as long as it makes you heal in your own way. Like, for example, I don't agree with a lot of things that you say or do in that realm, but I honor your journey. And I realize that I don't want to keep pushing my ideas in your face. It's yours. Like, it's your journey. You already know what I offer. You already know what I think. We know each other enough. So I honor your way. And I think that's important distinction.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I honor yours too. I'm just saying we were talking about the work that Sarah was trying to do. And I think that's that modality specifically, like subconscious reprogramming.
I won't choose that modality. Maybe you will, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's something I'm looking into. Like, we can have the conversation at some point. We don't know what we need to do today, but one of the things that Bill brought was that NLP certification, a life coach certification, and that's a huge part of NLP is like programming the words that we use and the pictures that we put in our head. The whole point is that science, like 70s or 80s, I think is when it started, but it's like you can tell how a person is processing something based on their eye movement. So like everything comes back to eyes. It's crazy. Like EMDR. It's like all these things come back to eyes, which is so true. But it's like where someone looks, there's like 6 directions: up, right, up, left, right, left, down, right, down, left. And depending on where you look, it's how you process things. So are you thinking something? Are you imagining something? Are you thinking of something in the future or the past? So it's really kind of a neat modality. But yeah, the whole point is that we all have an internal world, right? So validating that internal world and then also realizing like that we have the power to change the internal world. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like it's all these people are saying it. Tony Robbins, all these top spiritual teachers, is the three most important things is what you focus on, what meaning you give it, and what action you take. So what meaning you give it is the story you're telling yourself. That's meaning. Meaning is the story you tell yourself, is the meaning you give something. So that's the whole point, is like focus on things that make you feel good. Give yourself meaning that empowers you, and then take action that's empowering. That's it.
And I agree with it.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with the shadow side of it. That's all.
I don't think I agree with the shadow side of many things. I mean, that's the whole reason why they're called shadow sides.
No.
I don't agree with the shadow side of making money. You use it for gambling and strippers. But like the light side is giving it to people who you love and buying people gifts and sharing it with people who need it.
For me, the validation is a big piece. So
Yeah.
if someone tells me that's just a story you tell yourself, I immediately like, ooh, I'm not just telling myself a story. And that creates resistance. And I think that I can sit comfortably in a place to say that I transformed my inner world from very dark to a lot of light. Maybe it's not where I want it to be, but on my path, in my journey, I was able to do it with validating the stories and with holding space and getting in the why and all of these things. And this is my journey, and everyone's journey will look and feel different, and that's okay.
Yeah, of course it's
You
okay.
know?
Yeah, and that's why we have so many different healing
I do love this
modalities.
conversation, though.
Yeah, me too. It's great. It's super helpful. That's why there's not just one form of yoga. That's why there's not just sound bath or exercise. There's all these different things. Acupuncture. There's all these different forms because everyone has their own journey and their own story, and we all have different preferences and ways to relate to things. So, yeah, no, good talk, good conversation.